I will now go to Mr. Jans for 2.5 minutes, please, or less.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Rosenau, we talked about the critical importance of restoration enhancement, protection, habitat protection, of course, monitoring and science go into the fold as well. Do you believe that this budget is so critical that it's critical that we have a wild salmon recovery budget? I know that the Newtowneth, where I live, they've been looking for funds to help rebuild the habitat and protect habitat, and often they don't get the applications supported because there's so little funds. Do you believe that this budget is absolutely critical?
Well, I guess I don't know the details of the budget, but in a general sense, yes, more needs to be done because we're just sitting here at a crisis situation. And again, I mentioned the passenger pigeon and coho. That already happened 30 years ago, and sockeye have basically disappeared off the map. So yes, I would agree with you.
Great. Ms. Riston, do you want to comment on that as well as the fact that that obviously there's pesticides going into the water to deal with sea lice? You talk about the impact not just on the salmon, but obviously on the other stocks in the ecosystem.
Yes, there's considerable concern about particularly the pesticides and the abundance of shellfish, krill in particular, food for so many parts of the food web, if you will, being impacted with no study whatsoever being done on it. Our concern is also the likelihood that additional chemicals will be brought into the mix, as they've been unable here in BC to control sea lice with the mechanical equipment they brought in since the drugs have failed. The next thing is to move on to the next level of toxic drugs, and there's severe consequences for particularly for shellfish if such drugs are used here on this coast. And again, those haven't been studied either. So I think it's critical that we get a grip on this right away.
Right. Can you speak a little bit too about the fact that the minister hasn't even declared a state of emergency for wild salmon, and then we've got this budget coming up? Can you talk about the importance of this budget and how little money is going into this crisis that we're seeing right now? I know in Newtowneth territories we're seeing runs of salmon dry right up. Like it's a crisis.
I do see a number of areas that I've advocated for investment, and I'll wait to see the budget to see how well I do in that advocacy. But the areas that I've specifically mentioned are research, monitoring, enforcement, building the capacity in the communities to help participate in these things, and getting serious about habitat protection and restoration.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. We'll